the I'm a Fan of podcast, music, comedy, and more.
Brandon Lewin.
Yes, sir.
Dude, first of all, thank you so much.
Of course, man.
Driving in from
Fort.
Fort Worth, it's a long drive, and then you were telling me you actually still live down in Austin, so traveling around the state, man.
I do.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, excited to have you on, man. Last night was the first time I actually made it out to your club. Previously, all I'd seen were like the pictures online, but I remember because it's been about a year now, right?
It is. We just
First
came
of all,
up the year.
congratulations on a year, dude.
Thank
That's like tough for any business, a year.
It was.
But I just remember the first time seeing it going, wow, these pictures look beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know, something about the green. I really liked the green, the choice of green. But anyhow, but yeah, dude, I've just been so curious about some of your backstory. Like, how did you even decide, like, I want to take on this challenge? I mean, were you originally a comic, or were you just producing shows? Like, where did it all, what's the origin story?
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, just pull that a little closer.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. First of all, thanks for having me on.
Of course.
Second of all, yeah, man, I mean, I started, I moved to Texas from Chicago originally.
Oh, okay.
And so I moved down to Texas in 2015. And when I did that, about a year into it, I had a friend who passed away. Mm-hmm. And at that moment, he was like 32, fell asleep, never woke up. And so it was wild.
Well, now I'm having a panic attack, so thanks.
Anytime. That's what I'm here for. But
Yeah.
it like those moments create mortality. Like, you think about it, and I was like thinking about life, and I'm just like, all I did was work. I had an agency, marketing agency at the time, and so I had that, and then I had my family, and so that's all I did. And I was like, man, I need a hobby. I need something else outside of this, just to like get into, to enjoy life a little bit more.
What kind of marketing was it?
Mostly digital marketing.
Okay.
I've been doing that since, when I was like 20. I taught myself how to do all of it. Started the first social media marketing agency in 2008.
Wow.
Before other people were not really focusing on that. And so I grew it. And, but when the comedy part came around, like, I just thought about it. I was like, what am I going to do with my life? And what do I really like? And comedy was always something I fell back on. I listened to Andrew Dice Clay. My dad introduced me to Dice Clay, Bobby Slayton. I used to listen to like Man Cow on the radio in Chicago, which is like, he's a shock jockey, sort of like
the
Howard
local
Stern.
big radio?
Yeah.
Okay.
But he started getting syndicated. He got in some crazy shit and kind of fell off eventually. But he was like the Howard Stern of the Midwest.
So was it like that old school, like, we got a caller on 5, like that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Like morning radio or afternoon radio or something?
It was morning radio.
Yeah.
And so I would listen to all that type of stuff, and I got into comedy. I watched Eddie Murphy religiously. And so when I looked back on it, I was like, what do I want to get into? And comedy just felt like that place. And so I started getting into it. As I do with a lot of things, when I get interested in it, I dive in. I'm a nerd. Like, I dive into it. I'd start to learn the ins and outs. And comedy was that. And I started doing comedy. And
like, you were doing stand-up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did stand-up for a year and a half.
Yeah.
But what I realized...
It's a tough game, right?
It is a tough game. It's also like I feel like...
So much is already understood when you just say year and a half. It's like, it's already I'm having flashes of all the different people's year and a half. I've never done stand-up.
Oh, okay.
I've just heard the stories
Yes.
of like, a year and a half can go so many different ways for so many different people attempting comedy.
100%.
You know?
Yeah. Some people like kill it.
Yeah.
And others don't. And most people don't.
Yeah.
And so I just remember... I'm also like, I'm ADHD and I'm not patient at all. So like, what I didn't realize at first was I started going to open mics and I watch people do the same bit over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck are they doing? And can I swear on here?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. So that I didn't realize what that was at first until actually I got into it more and more, was that they're working on the material, you know? And, but I didn't like to do the same thing every single time. Now, again, hindsight, if I go back and look at it now, I'm like, I should have done that if I wanted to be a comedian. But I think everything happens for a reason.
I also get it, though. The first several times I watched local comedy, I've always been here around the Dallas area. So like the first several shows would have probably been like Dallas Hyenas. I didn't understand a couple things. One, I didn't understand that some of these people were here from this area. I thought like everybody's famous and coming in from out of town, right? So I'm thinking whoever the host is, it's like this guy's probably been on like Comedy Central or something.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I thought was like, I had no concept that someone worked on material or like
Yes.
created things beforehand.
Yes.
This was like, 15 years ago or something.
Yeah.
I was just like, wow, I can't believe somebody just goes up there and it's funny. Like
Yeah.
I was assuming everything was coming like off the cuff.
Yeah.
And when I finally learned about that, I was like, well, of course that makes sense. I can't believe I was such a dumbass thinking people just go up there 4 nights on a weekend, no plan.
Yeah. That would be amazing though.
Yeah, that would be incredible.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
But anyway, so you're saying like you realized like people are working on their stuff over and over and over.
Yeah, I found that like eventually what happened was like a couple things. One, I had to kind of make my own path because I didn't have time like everyone else had time. I feel like comedy is a young person's game in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
It is definitely more challenging the older you get and the more responsibilities you have because of how much time it goes into perfecting that craft. I spent a lot of my younger years perfecting crafts in marketing and business and entrepreneurship and sales. But and I see that now. Like I slept and then I worked, and that's all I did. And I perfected those skills by doing that all the time and really not having much of a social life. Now, comedy is the same way. But when I started, I had 2 young kids. Third one was on the way. And I had bills to pay. I had a company to run and clients to serve. And so it was challenging. What I had to do is be really strategic with my time. So I would go out, sign up for a mic. I would try to hit up like multiple mics in one night. And in Austin at that time, this is pre-pandemic, there wasn't the scene wasn't what it is now.
You said you moved in like 2015? So what year is this, you think?
2016.
Okay.
So 2016 is when I first started. There wasn't a whole lot of mics. And you had a kiss, like it was a very social scene. Like if you didn't know the people running the mic, because I would get there. I remember one time I got to a mic, signed up. I got there early, signed up, got the like top 3 spots at 8:00 mic to then potentially go and hit another mic at like 9, 10 o'clock,
right? And
then head home and then wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And so, but when I signed up for that 8:00 mic, they bumped me down to the very last because they didn't know who I was and they had friends who were doing other things and all. And so that shit pissed me off. And I get it to a certain extent, but I still feel like if the person's put in the time and they sign up at the top spot, you got to respect that. And so what I did, as I'm used to doing, is I just created my own mic. I found, I actually had a bar that I was doing the social media marketing for in Austin. It's called Buffalo Billiards, no longer there, but
okay.
We started doing a mic up there, and it wasn't very big. It never got like super successful, but
that was your first experience like show producing though, essentially, right?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. And so I remember one time I had some friends that were like that lived with me, and I worked out. I do CrossFit, and so we have like a little bit of a community. It's a cult, obviously.
Yeah, I saw some of your social media pictures hitting the weights, man.
Yeah.
I was doing a little stalking, seeing who you are.
I got to stay sane somehow, bro. But yeah, so my friends came up. They were like, "Yeah, I want to see you do some comedy." They really liked it. Yeah. They watched the open mic. But what I didn't like is like I wanted open mics. Obviously, are very much comedians watching other comedians. You very rarely have people who are audience members that are watching like an open mic, unless you're at the mothership or some famous seller or something like that. But even that is a higher level of open mic than the normal ones. So I got a taste right there, and they were like, "Hey, I want to see you do a show." And I was like, "Fuck it, I want to do a show." And so I started talking. I hired this guy, Dan French, who is a comedian. He's toured around, very funny guy. Did a lot of writing for famous comedians. Also did some writing for like late night shows. But he used to offer this like stand-up class, and I took a class to learn about stand-up because at the time there wasn't a whole lot. Like I couldn't figure out. I was just thinking about this on the drive over here. There wasn't at the time a whole lot where you could figure out how to write a joke. Yeah. And I even remember I hit up Josh Wolf one time on Twitter and was like, "Hey man, like I'm getting into comedy. What do I do?" And he's like, "Stage time, stage time, stage time." That's how he responded. And at the time I didn't understand it. Now I do 100% understand it. So so when the mic, my friends came to the mic, I decided, you know what, I'm going to put on a show. I talked to Dan about it. He kind of gave me some pointers. He also had the in with a lot of the local headliners that lived in Austin at the time. There was a few that toured the country. So he hooked me up. He ended up being the first headliner for our show. I found a venue in Cedar Park, which is like 10 minutes away from where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a brewery, and they had an outdoor venue area that sat about 100 people. And so I talked to them about it. They gave me like a decent rate for I could rent the place out. I rented out the equipment, got a microphone, speakers, got the lineup, put on some funny comedians that I really enjoyed, and marketed the show. And I put it up for tickets. I started off with like early bird tickets. I had military discounts, but I sold tickets. The average cost was about $17.50. We sold out 100 tickets by noon of the day of the show.
I mean, that's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Almost $20 ticket for a bar show, essentially. I know it's a brewery, but it's essentially a bar show.
Yeah, I mean, I paid the headliner $200.
Yeah.
So like it wasn't and that's a decent amount for like the amount of people that we had there.
Mm-hmm.
I also spent like $400 on advertising. I marketed on Facebook, and then I put it up on some other places, but I mean, it sold out. And the cool thing was that 30% of the people that showed up were my friends. The rest were people I had no idea who they were.
Yeah.
So that was like, oh man, I'm kind of onto something.
Dude, that feeling of just strangers coming to check out anything you do. I mean, it's just I played music. I never did comedy, but I play guitar. I used to be in bands, and we travel and stuff. And that was one of our big turning points, where you're playing all these local shows around town. And then we had that moment where it's like, we need to just leave.
Yep.
And we need to see if like we actually have what it takes for a stranger to go, this is worth my hard-earned money.
Yes.
And it's like, it's such a scary moment because, like you said, you've got a PA, you told this brewery like, oh, I can deliver. And then, you're telling these comics like, oh, it's going to be a great show.
Yep.
But then once you actually do it and you've got the tickets up for sale and it's like, you're just checking 4 times a day. Did we move any tickets? We move any tickets?
100%.
Like
it's so addicted to watching.
And then when they finally sell, you're like, oh my God, a stranger put $20 in my pocket just now, and it's wild. That's
wild.
impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so I did that a couple times. The second time I got another guy who came out and he saw the show, and it was October. It was kind of cold, and so it was like people came out. They had blankets and whatever, but they braved the weather, and they can't. I mean, weather. We talk about cold. It was like 60 degrees in Texas.
That brutal Central Texas weather.
Yeah, exactly. But Mike McRae was his name, the second headliner.
Okay,
and he's funny. He's done a lot of voiceovers. He's a really funny comedian. So he did it. He saw it, and he came up to me. He's like, Brandon, you're really on to something. He's like, the crowd's hot. They like it. I mean, I think we sold about 90 tickets, so it wasn't like a complete sellout, but it was close to it. Mm-hmm. We did it again. And then I took a little bit of a hiatus because my marketing agency really started taking off. Mm-hmm. So I had to put that kind of on a back burner. But then, and I didn't do comedy for a few months. And then people kept asking me, like, Brandon, when are you going to do it again? When are you going to do it again? It was so much fun. It was great. So I started doing it again, and it was like the signs of the universe came to me, and I was like, I started doing it again. And we did it like 6 months in a row. I did 6 months in a row, and continued to sell consistently across the board.
So was it like a weekly show, or how often?
It was a monthly show.
Monthly show.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
I found a different venue at that time. That was a better deal, but they really enjoyed it. Everyone else really enjoyed it. So it went well, and I was building it up, and I decided, you know what? I really love this. I love making people laugh. My favorite thing also, though, too, is like one of the things about the first show, which was the most rewarding, was that there was a couple comedians who I knew in the area that I thought were really funny. They went up, they did some spots, and I paid them. I don't think I paid them more than like $30. Mm-hmm. But I paid them like $30. I sent them a Venmo, and this one girl, Jacqueline, she was like, Brandon, this is so cool. Like, this is the first time I ever got paid for a show. I was like, my mind was blown because she had been on a bunch of shows locally in the area. But I was like, how does this normally work? Or like drink tickets or like food tickets or something like that. And I was like, oh shit, this is the first time you actually got money for doing a show. She's like, yeah. I was like, cool. This is a cool feeling. Like helping someone fulfill their dreams. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, that's got to be a big check off on their list of like, because essentially, even if it's $30, it's like you're now considered a professional. You got paid
100%.
That's the difference between a hobby, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that actually motivated me, that part and the part of what comedy does for people. But I didn't realize what it did for people the fans, the people that come to a show. I didn't realize what it did till later on.
Mm-hmm.
That, though, was the kind of motivating factor. Was like, I'm going to help comedians grow and do this, and at the same time put on a really good show and have people come out and have a good time.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I decided I was going to go into this full time. I said in 2019, I want to do this. So I started looking and talking and putting on ideas. And my first idea was to put on a show at the HEB Center, which is in Cedar Park.
Yeah.
It's an arena.
Oh, so go big, huh?
Yeah. I was like 100-person show to 1,800
How
people.
hard could it be?
Yeah, no big deal, you know? And I remember I was calling agents up. I was hitting comedians up, trying to get them on. And I would get a bunch of like offers back because they didn't know who I was and they'd never heard of me. And
Well, how are you getting in touch with agents? That seems like that would be very difficult.
So at that time, it was like I would I would go through, I could do this a couple different ways, but main place I went to was like the websites for the comedians.
Gotcha.
They had a contact list or contact form on there.
Their
I hit 'em up,
management email or
and-
whatever.
Yeah, and then they would respond back, and it was
Gotcha.
usually the agents, and it's still like that.
Would
a lot of
you
cases.
find going that route that you would actually get responses, or was it like I'm getting one response for every 10 emails?
I had probably got 6 responses out of every 10 emails.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
That's
but a
pretty good.
lot of them were fuck you offers.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, but still, it's like at least that's something, you know,
It
like
was.
you know, and hopefully some of them said, you know, we can't do it for these reasons. If it was that, we could consider it. Whatever you know, giving some feedback of some kind. Hopefully,
They did give some feedback. So I had one offer that was like I think it's Angela Johnson. And
Okay.
her people were like
Huge name.
Yeah, she was like, we need $400,000. I was like, why? And I tried to ask other people first before I asked them because I
Yeah.
didn't want to feel like an idiot because I've never done this before, but I didn't want them to think that. And so
before they said that number,
Uh-huh.
what in your mind was going to be like? What would she need? Like in your mind, were you thinking like, oh, we'll split some kind of ticket sale deal, or like, you know, 40 grand up front or something? Like, did you have anything in your head, or were you just winging it and going like,
I was winging it. I had no idea what to like.
Yeah.
I had no context. And
so
outside of
that number
200
400,000 was probably a shocking number to see.
It was. I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit. And
This is a bigger league than I thought.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I came to find out what it was that essentially what I was trying to do is put on this like showcase with a number of comedians. And sort of like you see with some of these other ones that do arenas where they have like 6 headliners kind of all share the marquee. And for her, it was like she was going to burn her tickets in that market in Austin.
Gotcha.
And so in order for her to do that, she needed to get paid X amount of money.
Yeah, so that means not coming back for like 14 months or something, right? Is that
I mean,
kind of how they were looking at it?
It depends, right?
Yeah.
Like every comedian's a little bit different. And it also depends on the tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's only 1,800 in a city like Austin, I mean, I would think that you wouldn't burn all your tickets. But that is like a theater, essentially.
Do you think part of that number 2 is to just see like they're bluffing a little, just to see like
100%.
how serious are you?
Yep.
You know?
That was 100% what it was. That's why I asked Dan. I was like, hey, why are they sending me $400,000? Is that really like the number there? He's like, no, that's a fuck you offer. That's pretty much saying, if you want to pay this, we'll take it. If
Yeah.
not, see you later. Thanks for reaching out. And so, and that made sense to me and I understood. Now, the cool thing was I ended up talking to this agent at ICM, which ICM's not around anymore, but his name's Adam. And Adam gave me 30 minutes of his time, and he broke it down to me. He was like, Brandon, can you jump on a call real quick? I was like, yeah, for sure. So he jumped on the call. He's like, explain to me what you're doing right now. And I told him the bar shows and how things were successful and what we were doing. Then he's like, all right, tell me the comedians you want to put on the show. So I started naming off the comedians. He's like, all right, you got a good taste in comedy. He's like, so that's a good thing. He's like, but before you take that leap from a 100-person show to 1,800 people or more, try 300 people. Do that on a consistent basis, and then build up to these larger shows. And so that really stuck with me, and I appreciate this to this day. Like, no one would give me the time of day. He did. Gave me some very valuable piece of advice, and that's what I did. I was like, all right, I'm going to pull this back, and I'm going to do my first 300-person show. So that's what I did. And I reached out to Dean Del Rey, who is a hilarious comedian. I saw him open for Bill Burr in 2018 in Austin.
Yeah, he just released that crazy special where he's basically performing in like a cave, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5, I think it's 58:16 or something like that, because that's the amount of sets he's done.
Wow.
And so, and he's a cool story too, that he had this history. He was a rock and roll. He was a rocker. He was in a couple bands.
I'm a huge fan of Burr, so like I've heard him on his podcast just singing his praises before I ever heard his stand up. You know, and that's the reason I found out is Burr was just pushing him so hard.
Yeah. And Dean is just like, he's a killer, man. Like I saw him do 15 minutes, and I think he murdered more in that 15 minutes than Bill did in that 45-minute set that he did.
Hey,
sometimes that happens.
Hey, there you go. Yeah.
So I was like, I stayed in contact. I met Dean after the show. I saw him in passing. I grabbed him. I was like, hey, man, can we talk a little bit? I'm doing some comedy. He's like, yeah, sure, no problem. Hit me up. So I got his email, and we stayed in contact. So a year passed, and I hit him up. I was like, listen, man, this is what I want to do. This is the show. This is how I'm going to run it. He's like, cool. Pay me X amount of money and cover my hotel, and we'll do that. I was like, cool.
Which obviously, I don't want you to say the dollar amount, but it sounds like much more reasonable than that $400,000.
So much
doable.
Yes, fractions of that cost.
Accessible.
Yes, it was, and it was great. So, but I booked the show, and with him, I was like, man, this is gonna be my first show, my big first show, and I'm gonna go into. My goal was to go into comedy production full time in 2020. That was my goal.
Right.
That show was set for March 7th, 2020.
What a great time to do a show, man.
It was perfect timing, baby. Let me tell you.
That's incredible.
That was the day the world shut down.
Yeah.
That was the same day that in Austin they canceled South by Southwest for the first time ever.
I forgot about that. Yeah. It's crazy how that was so dominant over all of our lives.
It was. And
thankfully, it's already starting to feel like it was so far away.
It does.
I'm starting to forget all of that until I look back at pictures and I'm like, oh, yeah, we were wearing masks right there.
Yes.
Like, oh, God, yeah. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, no.
So everything's shutting down. Everything's getting canceled, right, with your plans coming together.
Yeah. And Dean flies in. He's like, man, I've traveled a lot in my life. He's like, I've never seen airports this quiet before. He's like, it was eerie. And
he follows it up with, you got the check on yet?
Yeah. I paid him before he even got there.
Yeah, so he's like, well, we're going to do it if the world shuts down.
Yes, 100%. So we still put on the show, right?
Yeah.
And we got a third of the people that we expected there. So we still got about 100 people to come out. And the tickets were not cheap. Some of them were a little bit more expensive because I built in like an experience where they got to meet Dean and do some other stuff. And so there was stuff like that. But it was a loss. Not a huge loss, but it was a loss. But it was a win in a sense because I got to do my first real show. And people had a good time.
Well, and it's a good experience, too, of like, it's just, you can plan for perfect weather, right? And you just never, ever know. And, so, I mean, that's still a good... Well, it's not good, but it's a valuable first experience, right?
Yeah, I look at everything like this. It's like, unless I die from it, it's a learning experience. It could be a failure, it could be this, but there's a lot of things you can learn from those experiences. And unless I'm like completely deflated and never wanted to do it again, but that was like all you have to do sometimes, me personally, is you give me a little bit of an inch and I'll take a whole fucking mile.
Yeah.
And so that's what it was. It was like I got a little taste. Didn't deflate me, didn't defeat me. I was just like, all right, let's figure out what's going to happen next. And in fact, we still had a show the next weekend that we did because they didn't completely shut down the world. Like they were still trying to figure things out. But I remember people were out with masks on at that time. And I was like, holy shit. And actually, Andy Huggins, I don't know if you know.
No, I'm not familiar.
Andy he's an older gentleman. He's probably in the like 70s or 80s. And he's been doing comedy now. I forgot how long he's been doing it. But he's a very funny comedian out of Houston. He just did a couple Don't Tell specials. And he blew up. He's big now on the internet. But he was on that show. I remember he came out and he was like, giving me the elbow instead of shaking my hand. He was like, stay away. And I was like, yeah, I see why, because you're that age that they're telling you if you get it, you might not be coming back.
Well,
so
especially that first round, this is pre any talk of vaccine.
Nope.
We just see people in Italy dying left and right.
100%.
And we really don't know. Like, is this going to kill us all or is it overblown? It's like, we had no information yet. That was a wild time to be going like, let's go outside.
Yes.
let's go hang out with a bunch of people.
It was, man. And the funny thing is, I don't watch the news at all. I have stopped doing that for a very long time because it's so negative. I try to keep that shit out of my head. So I only get information from either people that I trust, or I look it up myself. And at the time, even on March 7th, like I didn't really understand the magnitude of the pandemic. And so until I realized that, they're shutting down South by Southwest.
Well, and especially in Texas too, because just being a more conservative state, they're like, well, hold on, we'll see. Let's wait.
Yes.
So, we're already on the slower end of responding to that anyway.
Yes.
Just because of all sorts of different beliefs that who cares. But
yeah.
And so, we're down here just going like, I don't know, I guess it's like a cold, right? It's a cold.
That's right. That's what I thought. I was like, oh, it's no big deal.
Yeah. But yeah, South by Southwest shutting down. That's huge.
It is.
I mean,
that was a big deal.
All the money that Austin probably lost from that,
Tons.
Yeah.
I mean, South by Southwest had to sell off. They got purchased by another company.
That's right. I forgot that's when that happened.
Yeah. So, because it just wasn't sustainable at that point. But, so we did that show, and then, then the world shut down, literally locked everyone in, and we had to kind of figure out. I waited for the dust to kind of settle to see where money was going to come from, how all this was going to work, what the parameters were. And what I decided to do was what I saw was the world was shut down. People were locked in. People were having a hard time, both from just general people, but also comedians who use comedy as an outlet. Because a lot of comedians have mental health issues. They work through their problems, and they use comedy as an outlet to get that off their chest.
Yeah.
Now, when you take that away from them and you put them in closed settings, they have to be locked in a freaking room, and they also aren't living with anybody, and you have no social interaction. It is tough, man.
Early on around here, when I was starting this podcast and just trying to learn more, about the process that these comics go through. Have you met Gretchen Young yet?
Yes.
Gretcho?
Yeah.
I would go to some of her mics, and she always had like a bar mic or an interesting show going, and she's just kind of that hustler who's like, if I find an interesting room, I'm going to try to put a show there.
Yeah, she's great.
And, from the outside initially, when I don't know her, when I don't really know what's going on, my mind starts going like, why is she doing all these? She make like money off this or something, whatever. And then the further you get in, you're like, no, she's not really making anything off this, probably. And then, but some of her mics were at that very entry level where this might be your first time jumping up there.
Yeah.
Your floor level stages with whatever PA you can scrounge up. And so some of those comics, man, they're running in there with, mental issues, real unique, air quote comedy sets, right?
Yes. Oh man.
You were in Austin,
Yeah.
But anyway, and I remember talking to her one time asking like, some of these people, like when they're getting angry that no one's laughing and they're screaming and berating an audience or something, even if it is mostly comics and a couple weirdos like me who are just watching it. But it's like, would you ever like tell them no? Like you can't be on this anymore. And her answer, like in so many words, was basically like, no, I mean, these people need an outlet. They want to try. And then she kind of, in fewer words, I guess I don't want to put words in her mouth because I'm paraphrasing, of course, but it was kind of like, hey, if this is what keeps that person from like snapping and like shooting up a building or something, it's like, what does that matter to me if I give them 5 minutes to rant?
100%.
And I was like, God, that's a great, it's like you forget some people in this world don't have an outlet.
No.
And that could be the moment that genuinely like saves some lives.
100%.
You don't, that obviously that sounds like, oh, your open mic saved lives, but it's like, maybe once or twice, somebody went in there, vented the right amount.
Yep.
And in their drive home, they thought about like, all right, maybe it's not that bad.
Yeah.
I got that out of my system.
Yeah, you never
just
know.
Don't.
You don't know what people are going through.
And so after that conversation with her, I really did start looking at those lowest level open mics. It's in such a different light of like, man, you just never know what somebody's going through.
Nope.
Maybe this person might have just found out like their spouse is cheating on them. They lost their job. The car might get repoed, and and then they just get up there and just get to vent. It's like, yeah, let's just keep them around, right? Like, just in case, in case. And then in a perfect scenario, it's like maybe they're funny and this changes their life, But yeah, so I could totally understand, your side of that.
It's funny enough because you mentioned that. Like, I remember when I hosted my open mic, I had a comedian that went up on stage and I gave him a light, and I didn't realize if he saw it or not, so I gave him the light again. And then he's like, yeah, I fucking saw that light. And he started going off on me. And I'm like sitting there like, what did I do? Like, are you talking to me?
We established the light early. Like,
Yeah.
you knew this was coming.
Yeah. I'm like, this is not a surprise, buddy.
Yeah.
But, afterwards he kind of apologized, but he was somewhat of a dick. But I never take that shit personally because, again, like you said, you never know what people are going through, man. And life is hard for a lot of people. And if you don't know how to deal with it, you need something to kind of let your shit off your chest.
And even that, dude, it's like, it might just be the nerves of like being on a stage and going, that open mic stuff is terrible. It's terrible. And it's like, if you're running through that and you're not getting any laughs and all of a sudden you see that light and you're just thinking, fuck.
Well, most
Fuck,
people,
this did not go the way I thought it was going to go.
Most people don't get laughs at open mics.
Sure,
unless it's from comedians, and then sometimes that's a little like biased because they're laughing because they know the joke or they like fun shit. I
encourage all just like the comedy fans that listen to this show who don't perform. It's like just go sit through an hour of one, and really what it did for me is it sculpted, it reshaped my thought process on how hard it is to write an hour, knowing like. It took you 10 years to get even to know how to be funny, period.
Yeah.
To try to develop 45 minutes to an hour is probably going to be 5 to 10 years of your life if you stay at it for a long time,
It is not easy, man.
Mm-hmm.
And like I give it up to like the comedians who know how to write an hour after an hour after an hour.
Yeah.
Like that's those pros,
Mm-hmm.
the Bill Burrs, the Joe Rogans.
Yeah, but they're all 20 plus years in now.
100%. I mean, it takes that long to finally get to a point where you can do that on a consistent basis. But you're absolutely right.
So when these shows were going on and the pandemic was going on, had you already started this as not the club, obviously, but isn't there like Big Laughs, like a production company essentially?
Yeah. So
or Big Laugh. I always say Big Laughs instead of Big Laugh. I don't know why.
It's Big Laugh Comedy.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Like everyone abbreviates it and they call it whatever they want. We used to have a running joke when I first started. We used to call like different variations. We call it Big Ass Comedy or Big Nose Comedy or Big Tits Comedy, whatever it was. You know, it was different things they could throw in there. But when I first started doing the bar shows, it was under Money in the Bank Productions.
Okay.
And when we shifted and the pandemic happened, that's when I was like, we're going to do online shows. But what I decided not to do was not to do stand-up online shows, the Zoom shows, the shows that like people would do a stand-up set on Zoom calls and have no audience whatsoever.
Yeah, it's rough.
It is so rough.
Yeah.
It was so awkward, and I did not like watching it. So what I decided to do was like create these kind of like game show, gimmicky kind of comedy shows. And it started off with this one that we did right before the world shut down in February of 2020. It was called In the Meme Time with a friend of mine named Carter Anderson. Now, Carter has blown up since then. And this is so cool to be in. When you get in the comedy scene, you start to see like people who were once like open micers and decent comedians, but now they somehow found a lane and they've blown up. And so Carter has like 1.9 million on TikTok, and he's found his niche. And so but he's a really funny stand-up comedian, and he does these kind of like videos on TikTok. If you get a chance, go check him out. It's really funny. He actually is coming in July to Fort Worth to do a show, to do a weekend with us.
Nice.
This will be his second time. So if you want to come out, check him out. I think you'll enjoy him. But Carter had this idea of creating this In the Meme Time. And it was a show where he would get 3 comedians on a panel. He would give them a picture and they would have X amount of time to create a meme. And then they would present that meme to the audience, and the audience would vote each round what it was, and each round had like a theme to it. And so and we did it at the bar. It was kind of fun. It was entertaining, and so we started doing it online, and it took off. People really enjoyed it. And then we did another show called Triple Threat, which was we had 2 comedians host it: Allison Voidovich, who's a friend of mine, and Ken Hamlet. Ken was living in, forgot where he was living at the time, but then he moved to Chicago. And so we had comedians actually all over. And so we started doing these shows. And people watched them. Comedians wanted to be a part of them. We had some really good people. Devin Walker, who's originally from Austin, who's now on SNL. He was a guest on one of the shows one time.
Wow.
And so, but it was just like, it was an outlet for these comedians. And then people at home got to watch something other than just Netflix.
Yeah.
And they got to participate. It was live. We would stream it on Facebook. live, and then we would put it up for like recording purposes on YouTube and so forth. And then that's when things really started taking off. When we started doing In the Meantime, I started getting people to reach out who were like, hey man, I can help with this, I can help with that. First person that reached out was like, wanted to help out with the technical side, because I was doing everything myself at first. And they came in and they started using like OBS, and we started, and then I had my buddy Eric, who is like a small partner in the company. He came in and he wanted to do, he's a branding guy, branding media. So he started changing. That's when we formed Big Laugh Comedy.
Gotcha. Okay.
He came in, he was like, man, we should change this name. I was like, I don't know. I feel kind of like partial to Money in the Bank because this is how I started. He's like, but listen, let's take this. The name's got to be a little bit bigger. Let's make it bigger. And so he threw out some ideas, and Big Laugh Comedy just kind of stuck. I liked it because I like the big laughs. I also personally have, like, when I laugh, you can hear it across the room.
You got one of those?
Yeah. So I was like, that kind of fits this. I'm like, I like it. Let's do it. So he helped form that. We had like a group of people. My buddy Ed came in. He was helping with the programming side. My friend Brandy, she came in. She was helping with like the production side. We had this like group of people, and then we started hiring some more people, and we were paying people as much as we could at the time. I had some money from my business, and so I was able to pay people for their time, and the comedians and so forth. And it grew. I mean, at one point we had 10 shows running 7 nights a week, and they were all online.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, and we got
a big undertaking.
Yeah, it was, and it was fun though. Like I really enjoyed it. It was like we built like a little mini network, and then that was like for like 6 months, and then things started opening up again in Texas, and I saw people doing those drive-in shows.
Yeah,
and those were like a step above a Zoom show.
Yeah, well, and everybody's itching to get out of the house any way they can.
But it was still awkward from a stand-up perspective because you couldn't hear the laugh still.
Yeah, weren't they like flashing their lights
or honking?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, honking is so disturbing. Like that's gonna ruin the show in the first place.
Yeah.
So it was interesting, but I was like looking, I was like, maybe we do something like that. And one of this girl Sarah, who helped us with like a production side for the shows. She knew the owner of Vulcan Gas Company,
right?
And so she put me in touch with him and Nick.
Because by then the Rogan, Tony, all those guys were probably on their way. They're talking about coming down here, right? By then was Vulcan putting on those shows?
No. Here, so I'm going to get to that.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's all good. You're getting ahead of me. But Joe had already moved to Austin. I think he moved in like March, like right when the pandemic happened. He kind of moved down to Austin. And so I was a big fan of his show, big fan of Kill Tony. I listened to it religiously. I heard him talking about it. He had rumblings of possibly opening up his own club. Also during the pandemic in May of 2020, the only club in Austin, Cap City, closed. After 32 years, they closed. They had to shut doors. So there was an opportunity. And I talked to Nick, and Nick was like, hey, man, Vulcan was predominantly EDM club at the time. They were like the biggest EDM club in Austin.
All the clips I've seen of that stage back then now make so much sense. Yeah.
I mean, it's been so many different things because it was.
Well, I was thinking those kind of coming out of the pandemic days where you're starting to see a lot of clips there. Because I was thinking like, is it a music venue? What is, because I'm up here, I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
but that makes sense. It definitely looks like an EDM place now. Yeah,
and they still were doing EDM. They would put it on, and they were doing socially distanced EDM. So they had like
fun.
It was so much fun to watch.
It's like everybody's just trying. Everybody's just trying, man.
You could watch. You could watch. They had these squares. If you watch from the top, they had these squares where they would put it out and they were like distanced perfectly, and then they had the table and you could only see like 8 to 10 people in those boxes. And I remember one time I watched it and there was this like huge dude who was like jacked. He took off his shirt and he had just like water because he was doing MDMA. And he was just like jamming out in this box like with him and like 3 other people. When there's like 4 other groups in the box, it was just so funny to watch.
I don't know what it's called, but it makes me think of those people who are into, I don't even know what the music genre is, but it's similar to EDM, I guess. But they wear like kind of the black goth outfits, but they stand like 4 or 5 feet apart and just do their own little dance moves. That's what it reminds me of already.
That's goth. That's pretty much goth.
Is that pretty much it? Okay.
Yeah, it's very similar.
Yeah.
So when I met Nick, he was like, man, like we're trying to bring in different things. Like my venue doesn't, can't fit the same amount of people and blah, blah, blah. He's like, I was interested in doing comedy and we haven't really had anyone. I was like, cool. I'm like, I know people, which I did, but I fibbed a little bit. Like I wasn't like hooked up. I just still had connections from the agents that I had talked to when I reached out for that initial show.
Yeah.
And so he's like, all right, cool. He's like, this is the deal. He's like, I will cover the shows in case, like, he's like, it probably will take 3 or 4, maybe more shows to really get up and running. He's like, so if we're at a loss, I'm okay. I'll invest that money into it. I'll also pay you for your time while you're doing this if we don't make any money. And I said, all right, cool. He's like, I'm like, but what I'll do, I told him, I was like, I'll do all the marketing. I got the brand, I got the marketing, I'll handle the customer service, I'll book the comedians. I'll do everything, customer service, all that stuff. I'll do the beginning up until the actual production of the show. Once people are in the door, I'll seat everybody too. You just then handle the service, which he did because they had it all set up. So they had the bartenders, the servers, all that. So we worked out the logistics. They kind of had this process already down because they were doing it for some EDM shows.
Yeah.
So he gave me one night a week. He gave me a Thursday every night for like the first month. And I booked Corey Michaelis, I think is his last name. I forgot the other guy's name. 2 guys, really funny comedians, but based out of the Pacific Northwest. They were like the first 2 shows. They didn't sell a whole lot of tickets. I think we did like 20 tickets. Then I did Ida Rodriguez, who's a very funny comedian. She was on Tiffany Haddish, had like that kind of like run of like 5 female comedians that did 30-minute sets on Netflix, and she was one of them.
Okay.
And she's really good friends with Tiffany Haddish. And so I saw her on that, and I was like, oh, I love her. She's great. And so we brought her in. She didn't do all that well either. And then the 4th person we did was Craig Honnett. I'm a big fan of Craig. He wasn't huge at the time, but he was like one of my favorite storytellers. He's just like super goofy, like extra.
You were fanning out on this one.
Yeah. So I was like, and I always thought he was like super funny. So I was like, oh, I'm going to bring him on. And then he was like, he told me when I contacted him, he's like, I'm going to bring Allie Makovsky, who I was a big fan of Allie. She was one of the first regulars on Kill Tony. And so I was like, yeah, bring out Allie. She's like a feature. And then I actually ended up booking her for another headlining gig. She came back eventually after that one in a few months. And so anyway, Craig was like our first sold out show. We did, I think, about 100 tickets roughly, socially distanced, and did a great show, killed it. And then the 5th show I booked was on a Wednesday, and it was Tony Hinchcliffe. I reached out to his agent. I was like, he's like, the agent at the time was like, Kill Tony sells more tickets than Tony does right now as a stand-up. I was like, interesting. I'm like, but I still want Tony. Like, bring in Tony. He's like, all right, cool. He had Tony coming in, going to do a weekend in Houston. So he's like, we'll route him and we'll put him on a Wednesday. I was like, cool. We'll see what happens, right? I also did that strategically knowing that he's best friends with Rogan, also knowing that Rogan lived in Austin at the time and hadn't been doing stand-up.
Trying to work a little magic here.
Yeah. I was like, maybe something will happen. Sure enough, Tony calls me up the day of the show and was like, hey, how's the parking situation down there? I said, it's not bad. I'm like, it's 6th Street. And like, he's like, yeah, the great Ron White wants to come out and do a set and do a spot. He wants to put his tour bus right there. I was like, okay, that's not going to work. 6th Street, not going to work. You're not going to find anywhere for a tour bus to sit. But I'm like, the green room is sanitized. We got it all clean. No problem. You guys are fine. It's like, cool. 3 hours later, Tony calls me back up. He's like, hey, the great and powerful Joe Rogan wants to come out and do a set. I was like, cool. No problem. He's like, where can we park? I was like, in the back, there's a parking lot right there. And then you guys can come in the alley and come through the back. It's like, all right, cool. So I tell Vulcan, Nick, and his general manager, and they're freaking out. They're like, oh, my God, Joe Rogan's coming by. And they get the set list, and we put it together. And it was Tony Casillas, who's now a door guy. Yeah. Very funny guy.
I know Tony.
Yeah, he's from here.
Tony was the very first guest ever on this podcast with a guy named Daniel Magden.
Hell yeah.
Yep.
I love Tony. A big fan of Tony. Always been a big fan of Tony. Tony hosted the show. He brought out Ron White. Ron then brought out Joe. Joe then brought up Tony. Tony closed the show out. Place went berserk when Joe came out. I just remember that they came in through the back door. They had just had dinner together. They came through. And Ron kind of staggered in a little bit after everyone else, and the place, we hadn't seated anybody yet. And so he's like, where is everybody? I was like, no one's coming, Ron. And he just kind of looked at me with his like blank stare. And I was like, no, dude, I'm joking. They're all outside.
That didn't land.
Yeah, exactly. So, and so the show went great. Everyone had a good time, built up, somewhat of a decent relationship. I stayed in touch with Tony, and Tony eventually moved to Austin. And he decided to take Kill Tony to Antone's at first, and they did it there. But then while this was all happening, we were booking more and more people. And so I don't know if you remember, but Joe and Dave Chappelle did that string of shows at the Stubbs outside. And Dave was so adamant about getting people tested.
Yeah, I was going to say that was the one that kind of started setting that benchmark of like, let's test before shows.
Yeah.
Right?
And I remember we booked Donnell Rawlings, because I was always a fan of Donnell. We booked Donnell for a show. And this was right before Dave decided he was going to do his shows in Austin. So Dave basically gave Donnell an ultimatum, because he had these other shows, and he was like, listen, if you want to do my shows, which Donnell loves Dave, for which he should, because he helped him really blow up his career in obviously a good way, grew it. But he holds, loves Dave, does anything for Dave. And Dave was like, I want you on the shows, but you cannot do outside shows, because I don't want you getting something and then bringing it back.
Yeah.
Which was funny enough, because Donnell had to cancel his shows that he was doing with us. And we're talking like 6 days before the actual show. So less than a week of Donnell's shows, Donnell canceled his shows. We were to reschedule regardless, but he decided to do that. 2 weeks later, Dave got COVID, which I thought was fucking ironic. He was like trying to block everything from him, but he still got it anyways. Donnell canceled those shows. I scrambled, because it was like, we had the bartenders, servers, all those people were making money from these shows. And so we had people that were relying on us. And so I was like, man, we got to fill this spot. And I kind of scrambled, and I hadn't met Red Band. Red Band had also moved down to Austin. And so I met Red Band, and I got his info, and I reached out to him. I was like, hey, man, I'm like, you might any chance want to do like a Red Band and Friends show, like Friday, Saturday? I'm like, Donnell had to cancel on us. He's like, I used to do this show called The Secret Show in the Ice House in Los Angeles. And he's like, I could do that. And I was like, cool. And he's like, I'd prefer to just do one night. I was like, oh, we'll do 2 nights, no problem. And so, so I got to force him on to doing 2 shows, and he sold both of those shows out. He had a great lineup. Tony was on them. I think Joe ended up being on one of them. And that kind of restarted the Secret Show, which now is still running. Now, obviously, it's at Sunset Strip, because he's part owner of Sunset Strip. But that became our lineup. So Tony would go on the Secret Show and do this. And he got, I don't know if you guys remember, but he got canceled for a short period of time.
Yeah.
That was during that Secret Show. And I was recording everyone's sets during those. I hired a videographer who'd come in, he'd record the sets, and I would give it to them. Most of the time, they wouldn't do anything with it, but I was like, hey, man, maybe they want to, and they want to put it up there. So sure enough, I had recorded that whole show. And I remember Pang Dang was the person that recorded it. He's also from the area.
Yeah.
He recorded it and cut it up and put it in complete different context of the situation, and kind of like really molded it into a way that it benefited him.
Okay.
And so, because like what happened.
Well, I remember all the clips and everything. Yeah.
Okay. So you saw the clips. Okay. So, Tony, I remember Tony was like, all this flack was coming out. And funny enough is that because how we had it structured, Vulcan was the venue. Vulcan always got the recognition. It was like Tony Hinchcliffe plays at the Vulcan. Joe Rogan's playing at the Vulcan. Like, we were always kind of behind the scenes, never really in the spotlight, until Tony got canceled. And then TMZ came out and was like, comedian Tony Hinchcliffe gets canceled at Big Laugh Comedy. I was like, bro, the one time
All press is good press. All press is good press.
The one time we get freaking in the press, it's because of a negative thing. But again, it's all good press. You're right.
Yeah.
So,
so how long was that run down there? I don't want to rush you too much, but I know you got a heart out, and I do want to talk about the club.
Oh, sorry.
But
okay.
So how long until it kind of went from that to you going, I'm going to open this club in Fort Worth?
Well, I always had the vision of opening up the club.
Yeah.
From the beginning of when we started doing this, even prior to that, I had this big vision, big plan of things that I wanted to do, and with the brand, and it was big. It still is.
Yeah.
But the first thing was a club. I needed my own club. Because mostly the complications of working with another person who owns a venue, you become, they control the calendar. And unfortunately, we couldn't work out a deal where like I got the exclusivity for comedy. And so it got to a point where I was like, I need to be in control of my own destiny.
Yeah, that's kind of the natural next step, right?
Yeah. And so that's
what made you choose Fort Worth?
So I was looking at 3 places. I actually had an offer to buy Hyenas in Fort Worth.
Oh, okay.
I had a verbal offer, and we had agreed on the dollar amount, handshake. When it came down to the time to start looking at financials and all that stuff, I asked for all that paperwork, and I had a business broker that was helping me out, and he reached out to the owner, asked him for it, and eventually he got back to me. He was like, Brandon, I'm sorry, but I looked at my tax returns, and I'm making too much money. It's way too easy. I got to back out of this deal. He's like, but you can help me out with this and this and that. And I'm a bit of a competitive person, and I took that a little bit of a slight. Like, we had an agreement. We had a verbal agreement. Now, it wasn't anything in writing, but we shook on it.
Yeah. And also, like, your path, you're not wanting to work for someone. You're wanting to do your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I understand.
He wanted, and from my understanding, he wanted out. He had already sold a majority of his club in Dallas at the time. He wanted to take this money and basically open up like his next step. He had, he had a grandkid that he wanted to spend more time with. It was all this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. That's what his reason. Because I asked him, I was like, why do you want to do this? And I wanted to make sure we were on the same page. And so it stung a little bit. But I decided, I was like, you know what? I found a friend of mine who was willing to invest in my vision, saw what I was doing in Austin, believed in me. 2 people, actually. The main person I had, he passed away. He got cancer very fast, 4 months, just like gone. It was rough, man. And so I was then with this other friend of mine who was willing to still kind of stick through it. And we looked in Austin, we looked in San Antonio, and I looked in Fort Worth. Because I was doing shows in multiple cities in Texas. I had like a little Texas run. Mm-hmm. After the success in Austin, we quickly added San Antonio. We were doing Dallas. We ended up doing some in Houston too. So Fort Worth, I just got acclimated. I did some shows with the other club here in the city. And I just I fell in love with Fort Worth. Mm-hmm. Like, the downtown was just like so quaint.
It's great.
It's great. It's clean. It's safe. It's like it's a lot different than downtown Austin.
A lot of free parking.
Yes, not so much. But
hey, I went there to watch a show last night, and the garage is free.
Yeah. You know? Certain garages are free. You're absolutely right. And after 6 p.m., street park is free too.
That's what I'm saying. So, you can find spots. If you just got to look around.
Got to look around. Yeah. And actually, the Downtown Fort Worth Alliance has a website where you can find all that stuff too.
Yeah.
I got acclimated to the area, and I found the place that we're at.
Yeah.
And I took a leap of faith because I had enough money to pay for the down payment, but I didn't have enough money to build it out. And I just took...
Did y'all actually purchase the building?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
So what's the down payment for the lease?
The lease, yeah.
Gotcha.
It was like a month and a half of rent or something.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay.
So I put money down, and then the clock started ticking, and I had to scramble. And so... I tried every which way. I tried to get my friend who was on board. He didn't want to really...
What did you think your timeline was going to be from putting that down payment to doors open?
I did not know.
Yeah?
I did not.
Yeah?
Dude, you talk about like taking a leap of faith. Like, I literally just jumped into it. And
well, I'm noticing a pattern.
Yes.
Because that's kind of how it was with the... I'm going to do the HEB zone or whatever too, right? It's like, I'm noticing we got a go big or go home theme here.
Yes,
huh? Okay.
100%.
All right.
I like to take big swings, man. And... So I took the leap of faith, and then what I did find is I found an SBA loan. So I took an SBA loan. I had to bring on some partners because I couldn't. I don't have a lot of money. I didn't have a lot of money, and I've always been an entrepreneur. And so I just found some partners who came in. They helped us push over the threshold for SBA loan, and we got it, and then we got things rocking and rolling with the club. Now, that's when things started kind of taking a downturn. I gave an opportunity to a friend of mine to do the construction side, and then they had to work out some things where they didn't actually have a construction company, but they had to find like a GC to work underneath them.
Yeah.
And the GC that they originally were to do couldn't get the proper paperwork for the SBA because the SBA is very particular about who they allow to do construction.
Oh.
More so than they have been in the past. They changed some of the rules. They even now they hire a third-party person, a company to come in and make sure that everything is down to the T, that they have all the proper paperwork. They actually they hand over that responsibility to the third party to pay out the construction because they have to check everything. They have inspectors come in before they get money. Their money is only distributed at certain points and checkpoints. So it's very...
This is all to make sure you're not stealing money, basically, right?
Me or the contractor.
That it's not being laundered somehow or something. Yeah.
And it's really about protecting the business owner against the contractor because of how many bad general contractors there are.
We've renovated 2 homes.
Yeah.
And so that's the stuff I always talk about with people. It's like, I want those contractors that are pulling permits through the city and having inspectors come out because it's like, that's my protection.
Yes.
It's like, hopefully you get good inspectors, but it's like, I need a little protection.
Yes.
I don't want this guy just going, no, the pipes are fine.
Yeah.
The pipes are good.
Exactly.
Just give me the check.
Yes, exactly.
So I can appreciate that. Yeah. With a small business loan, they're trying to protect essentially their asset. At this point, they own it, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And so, immediately there was red flags, and I should have known, but I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And this is all first time for me, and so I made a ton of mistakes. And basically, what happened was like this general contractor came in. They brought him in. He undercutted my friends, took them kind of completely out of the deal, had me sign with them directly. And then before he even went started, he tried to extort me, or basically did extort me, had me sign an amendment saying that I would give him free drinks for life.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting choice.
I know. And I was like, bro, if you get this done in this part of time, like you could have as many drinks as you want. Like I don't give a shit, but we don't have to put it on paper. He's like, I'm not doing anything without paper. And so once I did that, he basically said, if I don't sign that, he's not starting construction. And so that really put me, and I was like, time is ticking in my head because we're at that.
You got another month of lease coming up soon.
Yeah, exactly.
Here we go.
So I'm like pushing and pushing and pushing. He delayed it. It should have started in September. It started in October. The contract was for 120 days. He told me he could get it done in 45 days.
Wow.
He said max 90 days.
That all sounds good.
All sounds great.
Yeah.
I mean, in all honesty, probably could have been done if he actually would have done the work. Now the problem was that he started, and then he started demo before he told me he was going to start. He said he was going to start on Thursday. He started on a Monday. When I came in there to check on Thursday, he had already started, and they also were trying to steal. We had kitchen equipment from the previous owners that I had purchased from the previous owners. He started taking that equipment and giving it to the guys doing the demo to sell, so they can make extra money. And I was like, whoa, this is mine. He's like, well, anything that's left in here is mine. I was like, that's what?
Yeah.
So there was all these major red flags, and the construction got delayed and delayed. He was just a very difficult person to deal with. I think there was some like drinking problems, whatever. And it basically dragged out for a year.
Wow.
I had to fire him at the end, and then I had to push this over the end to get it finalized.
Yeah.
And so during that entire delay, I mean, like we're talking about 8 months.
Yeah,
8, 9
that's
months.
a big deal.
We didn't have the working capital for that. So I'm still having to pay people. We're still trying to get things done. I had booked comedians thinking he told me for a fact, he's like, I'm going to be ready in December, the latest. So
because you're trying to have those shows ready to go once it's done, and you need to do that, a month or so in advance minimum so these people can, they need to make plans to book shows and all this kind of stuff as well. Yeah,
there's a lot of planning that goes into it. So I told him, I like kept on hitting on him.
Sorry, my wife keeps blowing me up. I'm just going to shut that down. Okay, there we go.
And so I kept on asking him, are we good? Are we good? And he's like, we're fine. Until 2 weeks before, he's like, we're not. We're going to be another 2 weeks. And then that became another 2 weeks. But it all added up, and I had these comedians I had such a killer lineup. I mean, I had some of the best comedians in the world that have never played the area too, and they came, and so they were going to come, and I had to reschedule, cancel,
all the stuff you don't want to do as a new club.
yeah. And I even pivoted because sometimes it was so close to the date that we just ended up doing shows at like the Asher Hotel right next door. But that's not ideal for comedians. They're expecting to be in the club.
Yeah. And again, like you're trying to put this best foot forward. So from their perspective, this is all coming across as red flags.
Yes.
Yeah.
And but like, mind you, I had built up such a good reputation from Austin. Like everything that I did in Austin, we did everything to the T. People got paid on time. They had great experiences from a comedian standpoint. And so they all trusted that I was going to do the same thing in Fort Worth. And when that didn't happen, that's when the relationship started deteriorating.
Yeah.
And the trust broke. And then now all these people hate me and this and that.
Yeah, my DMs got a little saucy when they found out you were coming on.
It's so crazy, man. But like, you know,
so what day did it finally open? It was summertime, right?
June of 2024.
So what was that whole process of what was the length of time? You said about a year?
Yeah.
Wow. So you were thinking, so man, you put that money down for the first month or whatever, and you're probably thinking, oh, maybe like 5-6 months, and then it's a year. That's brutal. Yeah. So okay. So like, you get through that, doors are open.
Yeah. Still nothing. It wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
Construction still wasn't complete. Like we were able to get our CO at that point.
Your certificate of occupancy.
Yeah. And we were able to do that, but there was certain limitations. Like we couldn't have the kitchen open because we had our vent hood wasn't working.
Right.
And so it took 2 months to figure that out, and the kitchen was a big part of it. Like my whole thought, like the reason I got the place was that it had a built-in kitchen.
Right. Which is hopefully a huge source of revenue.
It was going to be. And it was going to be this whole full experience. Like it was people could be able to have quality food during a show, which most places don't have that. Like when you go to comedy clubs, you get fried shit.
Yeah.
You know, it's
chicken strips on crinkly paper.
Yes, exactly. And nachos with like cheese that they made from Velveeta or something like that. You know? So it's just like I had this whole vision of how we were going to do it and create this great experience for people, but it just didn't happen the way I visioned it. And there was challenge after challenge after challenge that led and just accumulated. And then, you know, it was demoralizing for a lot of people, especially people that were, you know, working. And it was hard. It was very, very hard. I went through ups and downs. I mean, shit, dude. I also, in that process, had like $20,000 stolen from me, scammed. I got hit with a scam, and they stole $20,000. Now, luckily, I was able to get a majority of that back, but that all was happening during this. There were so many things behind the closed doors that I have not talked to, and most people don't know about. This is the first time I'm really kind of sharing it publicly. But it was a lot. It was a lot, and I took it all on personally, and had to apologize and pay. Like I paid comedians deposits because we couldn't fulfill the shows, and so we lost money, so much money, man.
When the construction's going south, right, and you're hitting month 7th, 7, 8, 9, 10, is it ever going through your mind like, I should have started with a smaller place, or I should just scrap this and get a small room or something instead of doing because right now you have 2 rooms. It's a big place.
Yeah. Was
it ever crossing your mind like, okay, too big, let's go smaller. This is getting out of hand.
Well, I mean, I was too far into it to be able to back out then. Like the thing was like at that point when I'm like 7 months in, I'm like thinking, do I need to stick with this contractor? And I even talked to multiple general contractors and lawyers. And everybody said the same thing, which was no, because it's going to take you more time to...
Going back to square one.
Yeah, because you got to get the re-permits and all that stuff. So I
guess it's that old game, too, of like, I've put so much money in. I've got no more money to put into a new thing.
Yeah.
We've got to figure it out, right?
I couldn't just blow it up at that point.
Yeah,
that wasn't much of an option.
Yeah.
And so...
In hindsight, though, knowing what you know now, would you have started with one room or would you have still gone for double rooms?
I still would have gone double rooms.
Yeah, go big? All right, swing for the fence,
well,
right?
Here's the reason why, man. It's like, it's not for me. It's for the comedians. Like the idea of having... And we do this at times. Like we're not fully up to where we want to be at. But the idea was like... And we've done this before where we have a show running upstairs and a show running downstairs. And on the weekends, we can have 4 shows in one night. And there have been times where I've put comedians who are hosting or featuring for both those comedians for both those rooms. So for that local comedian, they're getting 4 spots in one night, which is in the DFW area is unheard of.
Yeah.
Especially in a quality setting, like doing it for national headliners. They're doing, 4 sets on these shows that have like 100+ people in them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's the goal, right?
It's the reason I did the 2 rooms was that the small room was always for development. It was to bring in the comedians who can't necessarily sell out 1,200 tickets, because the upstairs room seats about 280 people, 300 people. So for sold out shows, that's 1,200 people technically.
Yeah.
The downstairs room was always supposed to be like 70 to 80 people, but it turned out that it was bigger than I thought it was, and then we could seat 110 up to 110 in there. So, but we could still get like a comedian who can't sell that big room out, that could still sell a decent 300-400 tickets. They could do that small room. They could do that, come to the market. We had like a comedian, AJ Wilkerson. He did that, but he actually sold that room so well, we actually ended up moving him to the big room.
That's awesome.
And so that was the goal. And then it is the goal is to like bring in comedians who are not yet ready for the big room, have them do a weekend, establish themselves, build up a market here, come back, either do it again or do it or move up to the big room. And that's like the graduation. And then also be able to do showcases. Like having that much stage time for the comedians is something that is not capable here. And I wanted, my goal with Big Laugh Comedy in general is to have these spots that have multiple rooms so we can build and help develop comedians, so they also don't have to move to other cities.
Right. That's
the thing is, like, unfortunately right now, it's like if you're in the DFW area and you get really good, your next step is moving to New York, moving to Austin. But they don't have the option of just staying here and growing and blowing up. I mean, Ralph Balboa is the only person.
I definitely think it's changing if you go between the 2 cities, right?
Yeah.
If you're willing to make those 40-minute drives between Dallas and Fort Worth, the mix of clubs I think is real helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's part of the reason why I was wanting to talk about it is like I do believe in that like healthy competition. I think everybody wants that.
100%.
Smart people want it, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was just curious if you felt like I would do one, 200 seat room or something and kind of learn but you just feel like, that's too long of a process. Let's just go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is like I saw what we were capable of doing in Austin. And again, it's like, unfortunately it's the what ifs, but I'm still fighting to get back to that point. But we get to that point where we're having like a killer headliner in the big room and then another killer headliner in the small room. Like that place is popping, man. I'm like, we could technically fit 688 people in there.
Well, I mean, ultimately the people that are frustrated about, pay and I don't want to get in the details on people's unique situations because that's none of my business, first of all.
Sure.
And then second of all, it's like you could spend hours and hours and hours going through the weeds on that.
Yeah.
But essentially it's like there are some people who feel like, or I don't want to say feel like, that's kind of discrediting, but there are people who you've said yourself like you owe money to them, right? It seems like the key to everybody being happy, right, is to getting Big Laughs to a point where it's moving tickets and shows are doing well.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
So it's like now that, okay, everybody can argue about like the rough part and the how, but essentially it's like, who cares at this point if the goal is to be made whole, right? Where everybody's back to normal. It's selling tickets and making the club successful, right?
Yeah.
So what's kind of some of your philosophy? Like, how do you think that's going to go where you got your small room and your big room popping just like you want on the weekends?
Main thing is just getting the word out right now. There's still a shit ton of people we're a year in that still don't know that we're there.
Yeah.
And the other thing is like converting people into comedy. Like that's the other thing. A lot of people don't understand comedy is so good for you. Like one of the things I was talking about.
You mean as a fan? Like just somebody watching it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember, I forgot. I was like I think it was during the pandemic. I got a surgery. I had my appendix like almost burst, and I had to go get it removed. And I went under. I came back up, and I remember popped up, and the nurse was handling me, and it was a male nurse, and he's like, "What do you do?" And I told him what I did, and he's like, I've never been to a comedy show before. And I'm like, holy shit, really? And like, I live in it, so it's like I'm not used to that. But there are so many people that I meet that come out to shows, and they've never been to a comedy show before, and it's like a large group of people, and it's a good portion of our
I've heard all those statistics of like 80% of most sold out shows are people who've never been to a show before. Yeah, I've heard that going around.
But the thing is like why I think people need to go to comedy shows more often is that like it does so much for you from a mental and a physical standpoint. Like physically, you can actually, if you laugh enough, it can reduce your pain by 10%. If you got physical pain. from a mental standpoint, it makes you happier, makes you more productive. It helps you build deeper relationships because you're happier, right? Like when you laugh and you set those feel-good chemicals off in your brain, it does so many things for you.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, which was I didn't realize I went into it for the comedian standpoint, but I didn't realize what it did for people as a fan or a person who's watching, or audience member.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a taste of that coming out of the pandemic when we started doing shows at Vulcan, because I used to start getting emails from people like, oh man, this is amazing. We haven't been able to get out. I got one email that still sticks to me till this day. His name is, I'm not going to name his name because I don't want to put him out there. But
thank you. I don't want to have to edit it.
Yeah. But he sent me an email. He's like, Brandon, like, honestly, I woke up today not thinking that anyone will care if I didn't wake up. And I was really questioning whether I wanted to continue in this life or not. I went to your comedy show. I laughed for 2 hours, and I feel completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, I still check in on him. He's doing great. He's doing comedy himself. He's acting. He's having a great time. But that was an eye-opening experience for me because, but then I started getting other emails, and most of them are like happier. Like, I met my wife at a comedy show, or we celebrated our first anniversary there, and now we're celebrating 27 years, so we're coming back to the comedy show.
Mm-hmm.
I've met other people who were just like, they just like to go out and laugh, and then they use it for social purposes too. And it's like, it's such a powerful tool that I believe that if more people laugh in this world, and it sounds cliche and kind of cheesy, but it will be a better place, man. Like, honestly.
Hey, I mean, look, you're preaching to the choir. That's what I like about this show. But, you know, I mean, it's like, I totally agree. I think that's 100% right. But then it does come down to, like, you know, it's like, even with this show, it's like I can tell people, but it's like, how do you think you actually get them there? You know, how do you think you actually sell the tickets? Like, one of the things I've been real interested in lately is kind of the owners' opinions, bookers' opinions, producers' opinions on that balance between, you know, a club or a show and the performers, and like, who brings the audience and how should they do that?
So there's a lot of different ways, right? Like, I've met other club owners who've built up a really strong brand that 60% of their audience is repeat customers, and that's the goal. Like, for me, that's
so you're going for like people going, I know this club always has good people. I want to come in here.
Correct.
Yeah.
I want them to trust us to say, like, hey, no matter what show it is or whoever's on it, that I trust them that they're going to make me laugh.
Yeah. I know you've got a heavy marketing background, but outside of that, like, have you heard of the guys in Cowabunga that do these shows in Plano, Texas? It's an independent show. They do it at a bar, but they're doing really well. And it's just this bar in this neighborhood in Plano, and they've kind of just taken over that little area, essentially. Doing what you want to do right now. They have these repeat customers that just come in, and they know whoever's going to be on the lineup. They're excited to see it, right? And it's like their neighborhood feel. What you're talking about. A lot of their stuff, from what I've talked to them, has been like boots on the ground, like flyering apartment complexes, those types of things. Like, have you thought about...
We're doing that.
Are you doing that already? Oh, okay. No, I was just curious. I don't know how much people want to do that type mixed with digital as well.
I do both. I mean, really, the thing is like trying to get as much out there as possible.
What have you found to be the most effective?
Honestly, comedians who bring a audience.
It's still the comics bringing the crowd
It
mostly,
is, man.
Well, why do you think it's not catching on with the tactics for the club side?
Well, I mean, first of all,
what do you feel like the barriers are?
We're a year in, and we faced all these challenges. My SBA loan had $150,000 in there built in to use for a marketing campaign.
Okay,
which, because of that long delay, got eaten up. I didn't have that budget coming into it, so everything has been bootstrapped. So, you know, and then also because of some of the complications, there was bad experiences. So there's kind of like a mixed taste from people who have been to shows and all this stuff, and so we're having to overcome a lot of things. But
so it's like overcoming some people's bad first experience initially and trying to get them back in that second time, which is even harder.
Yeah.
I hear you.
And then it's just like, it's getting people to come out to the shows. It's downtown. I think Fort Worth has this stigma about like going downtown to.
Oh, okay. I don't know Fort Worth well.
Yeah.
I've gone down there for, you know, shows at like Hyenas, for instance, or going over to the like the Flying Saucer, that whole area.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is a great area.
It is.
You know, and I think Fort Worth has probably what, like 1.3 million people or something.
Yeah, it's taken over. It's larger than Austin is now.
Yeah. It's big. Yeah.
It's just spread out, and like honestly, it's just like It's attracting the right people.
What about like is there a way to hack into those like college campuses and that type of stuff with similar kind of guerrilla marketing tactics of like we're going to flyer certain areas where we know students are living? Those,
100%.
I mean, you know,
the thing is you don't necessarily want students though.
Really?
Like, I mean, you do want students. Maybe there's a college night, and we've always toured around with a college night. But the problem is that like most college students don't have a whole lot of money, and so that's the other thing. Is like comedy clubs. Most people don't know this, but most comedy clubs make their money off the drinks,
right,
or the food, and tickets. Predominantly, most of that money goes back to the comedians. If they're headliners, they take a lot of that money.
On that note,
yeah.
How do you feel about, you know, like building up that email list and just paper in rooms?
That's also
like
what
that?
we're starting to do.
Yeah.
I
Do you
don't
feel like that's good, bad?
I think it's good and bad. It just all depends, right? Like every situation's unique within its own. We're doing that right now. We run a campaign where people can get 4 free tickets. They just got to sign up. They get it.
An email list like on the website?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we do it right now. It's like running on Instagram and Facebook.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
And then we're going to be doing some direct mail campaigns, sending out there.
Yeah.
We also have business cards that we hand out. People can scan it, sign up, get 4 free tickets, or bring them in.
You feel like that's working? I've always been curious because I mean here locally it's like I'm on email lists with some of these other spots, so I get those messages and emails, but I always wonder how successful those are. You know?
Yeah, I mean most people are only going to go to a comedy show maybe once a quarter. That's the thing, and so it's just trying to like get enough people where they come out on a consistent basis. So I can't tell you I have the answer to what this looks like right now.
No, I don't.
But we're still all trying to figure this out. And I'll tell you like this: we have repeat customers. I have I have a group of people that come religiously on a Wednesday. We do whiskey Wednesdays, whiskey and laughs, 30% off whiskey drinks. People come in. We have a great showcase of local comedians. So I mean, like. Some of this is working. It's just a slow burn instead of a long haul.
Yeah. I mean, that's the hard part, right? Is there is an inflection point.
Yeah.
And it's just like, once you get over that, everything usually gets easier in most businesses, but getting there is just tough. And like, I'm not asking you, expecting to have all these full answers. I'm just very curious because, you know, I'm one of those people. It's like from the outside, you think, oh, do this, do that. That should work. But you don't know until you're doing it, you know? And
in theory, all that sounds great, right?
I know,
until you actually do it. And then it's like, well, why isn't this
like,
working?
Just build up an email list with like 100,000 people.
Yeah. No problem.
Yeah. No, I'm just curious. Because, I mean, honestly, like the biggest, I told you I was going to solicit people for questions.
Yeah.
And like the biggest theme that kept coming through was like, you know, the uncomfortable topic of money being owed. Will it ever be paid back? And my thought process was like, you know, I wonder if you've even had a timeline in your mind of like, if I can get the club running this way, you know, to this level of success, or if I can sell this many tickets a year or something even, right? Now that you've gone through your first year, it's like, what does that timeline look like for you? Is it like, I think if I hit this point, then I could get back to, you know, making people whole in like 5 years or something? I don't know. But
yeah. So first of all, some of the people, I don't know specifically who's asking, but
that's why I didn't want to say names because, you know.
But I'll tell you like
this. You know
a lot of people have been paid money though already.
Well, I was going to say, you know who is owed something and who isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm not trying to say it that way. But that was the thing that comes up, right? Because this community, it's like any bad news circulates faster than good news, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's always real easy to exaggerate something.
But no one knows the ins and outs for real. And then, in all honesty, like there's not someone who's owed $100,000.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. And like I said, most people are being paid back a majority of what they own. And some people have been paid back in full. And
That's
so there's not like, hey, this isn't going to happen. It is happening. It's just like, I said this in the video. It's like we might owe 5 people money, or 5 people might be owed money, but we only have enough to pay 3 people.
Yeah.
So it's just the situation, right? Yeah. And it's like I've told everyone, I've apologized profusely. I've explained the situation. And in fact, a lot of people who came into the situation knew it because I was 100% transparent with everybody.
Yeah.
It's like, listen, this is the deal. This is where we're at. This is our goal. This is the plan. This is how we're going to come out of it. And what happens is that they get into it and then it becomes hard. And a lot of people are not built to go through hard shit.
Well, and to be fair, too, like you see this criticism online that's negative, but an equal amount of people that I've talked to in person have all had positive experiences. So it's definitely not like it's only this.
Yeah.
So I don't want to make it seem that way.
No.
But those are just some of the things is, you know, it's like, okay, if you could snap your fingers and the club's selling out every weekend, every show.
Oh, we would pay people back in like 4 months.
I mean, you know,
I was
I was trying to, some of the DMs I was getting, you know, people are passionate is a good word to say.
100%,
It's
yeah.
like lately, I sent one of them a response. It's like, lately I've been thinking about this Dolly Parton clip where somebody asked her thoughts on prostitution and sexuality and all this. And her response was just real simple. Like, I try not to judge everybody. Like my past is, my own problem too, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I just want what's best for everyone. And it was hard to kind of express that of like, everyone in the community, even people who, if they feel like they've been wronged, would benefit with the club's success, right?
100%.
It's like you could be made whole. The club would be successful, right? We get over this hump of the previous construction woes and all that. And then the comics of the community all have this great new place that's working, right?
100%.
And so it's like, it was very strange, and it's hard to communicate anything through a text of like, hey, even if you've had your differences and run-ins, whatever's going on, it's like, it's still to your benefit for this place to succeed too. That is what would help you the most also. And it's like, but it's hard to get people into that positive zone of like, hey, if it works, you win too.
Yeah,
You know,
it is hard,
it's
and
tough.
and I try to explain that to people too, and it's just like,
Yeah, but if you've had a run with somebody, you're never going to hear it that way.
No, 100%.
You're angry, you're frustrated.
and
Yeah.
listen, I've been called a lot of names by a lot of people, and they've said a lot of crazy shit to me, and I don't take it personally because, like, honestly, at the end of the day, I understand that this is tough, and they went through a really tough time. And it was never my intentions. It was not malicious. It happened. I tried to be as upfront with everybody as possible. And I'm not mad at them for being mad. Like, that's human nature. Like, I would be, if I was in their shoes, I'd be mad too. There was a certain person who was like, I paid them back in full. I was like, hey, listen, and I'm like, again, I'm very sorry about it. Like, Brandon, I don't understand why you're being nice to me right now. I said so many mean shit and bad stuff about you. I said, listen, I don't take it personally, man. I'm like, if I was in your shoes, I'd be mad too. I'm like, I'm not going to get mad at you for being mad and being human. Like, it's just human nature.
Yeah, I mean, I had some people like, you familiar with Lawrence Rosales? I don't know if he's got to work with you yet,
No.
but he works a lot more over here in Dallas, but he's been around here for like 10 years now. And I was able to produce a comedy special for him.
Nice.
But a lot of his stuff was about how he had this spiraling point of his life where he was critically addicted to meth. He ruined a bunch of personal relationships, a bunch of professional relationships. His marriage ended because of it. All these things, And it's like when he was back on the upside of that, and I didn't know him well when he was going through that. I kind of knew him when he was coming out of it. And I was finding out all these problems that he had. And but it's like, when I met him, it's like this guy who's trying to do better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there were a handful of people who were like, I wouldn't work with him, man. I wouldn't do that. You know, and you're hearing this, it's like, hey, I know you had an experience. And I'm not saying your experience wasn't real and it didn't happen and that you should or shouldn't have any feelings towards someone. But it's like, but I haven't had that experience with them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, if I'm going to judge everybody off that previous stuff and I'm not even going to give this guy a chance, it's like, man, that really sucks.
Yeah.
And even at his like release party when we were playing the video, it's like there was someone who was like, I can't believe you did this. And it's like, first of all, why are you even here?
Yeah.
If you're just going to, what are you doing? We invited you to this thing.
Yeah.
It's like, he hasn't punched anyone or done any, he's not doing any meth as far as I know.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, it's like life is long, man.
It
It's
is.
like, it's short, but it's long.
Yeah.
And it's like, there should be a path to redemption for people, right? It's like, who can't appreciate that it's really hard to swing for the fence and open up a 2-room club, and then there's a bunch of problems you don't anticipate.
Yeah.
Right? And then it's like, then the challenge is just, okay, can we get over that hump and get this thing cooking, And it's like,
I could have given up the entire time.
Yeah.
Like, I could have given up at any point.
Yeah.
I could have filed for bankruptcy and then no one would have got paid.
Yeah.
And I chose not to go that path because I didn't want to let people down. And as long as I have to endure all this shit, it is what it is, man. Like,
Yeah.
I believe things happen for a reason. I also think that certain people are built for certain things in life. And unfortunately, well, not fortunately, but like, fortunately for me, like, I can take a lot of punches and get back up.
yeah.
Like,
Well, and the reality is, like, it wouldn't matter. People can believe what they want to believe, right? It's going to go one way or another.
It is.
It'll either work or it won't.
Yeah.
And it's like time will tell the truth on all that stuff.
100%.
And so, but it's like everyone's best interest. Like, hey, come on. Do you want a club that works and you want the paychecks to be coming in? Everybody wants that,
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I hope people can find, I hope you guys can all kind of rectify those issues amongst yourselves and then get that club to a place where we're past all that. Because again, making it through a first year for any business is tough.
It is.
So that's a huge accomplishment on its own, especially if you didn't even have all those bumps in the road, right?
Yeah.
And so now, like, what do you think your biggest goals are? Like, we're in year 2 now. Like, now what are your all right, what I want to do in year 2 is this. And I think if we do that, it'll start coming together more.
Well, it's just like, first and foremost, is just exceeding what we did the first year. You know, we hit certain numbers, and we just got to exceed those numbers. And as long as we continue to build on that, I think good things are going to happen.
Yeah.
Getting certain comedians in the door, certain headliners, also building up showcases, and then just building up the community and getting more involved in the community, getting the word out there more. It's a combination of awareness, also as bringing in quality shows.
Yeah.
And we're doing that, man. Like, we have a pretty good slate. So what I had to do is kind of shift because of how the relationship kind of deteriorated with certain comedians. I had to kind of shift, and this was always the goal, but it just kind of got fast forward pretty quickly, was to bring in really funny people that most people don't know about. Like, there's a guy by Eddie Pepitone.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Eddie,
Not household names, but
No.
funny people.
funny people.
Yeah, yeah.
He's coming, right? We're doing a weekend with him. Sean, his name, Sean Jones.
Okay.
Sean Jones, he's a really, really funny comedian. A lot of people don't know who he is. He's coming. We're bringing in Dean Del Rey. Again, very funny, but he's going to be able to play a weekend with us. Damon Williams, who, I don't know, he's been kind of in the news recently because of some, like, negative stuff, but, like, he's a great longtime comedian who's super funny. And these are the things, like, younger comedians giving people, you know, we did a show with Fiona
Cawley? Yeah.
Great comedian. You know, giving people like that opportunities to come here and do shows. You know, I have other relationships with other comedians, and so the fortunate part is that there's so many comedians now that I might not be able to get all the ones that the other club in town can get, but I can.
But they also
ones.
got what, a 20-year head start on you or
100%.
something.
Yeah,
You know, it's like
100%.
things take time.
Yeah.
Things take time, and you know, it's like what I do like about y'all being open down there is, you know, especially as a fan, is like I like both clubs. You know what I mean? And it's that healthy competition is good for everybody. You know, and now as the owners, I don't know what goes on between y'all. I'm not trying to get into that, but you know, for Fort Worth at least, it's like Fort Worth can use a few more venues. You know, it can use healthy competition to, you know, give those comics areas to go work and perform in, and then get more outside comics coming in, so these local comics can also work and benefit with them as well.
Yeah.
So, no, I mean, I'm here for it, man. Is it time to get you out here? It is.
Yeah.
Well, dude, yeah, I mean, I could chat with you for like another 2 hours about all of it.
We can do it again.
And, yeah, I was gonna say, anytime you want to come back, man.
Okay.
But I mean, my whole takeaway with this stuff is like, you know, that sucks that you try to start something, and for whatever reasons that I'm not even interested in because it's none of my business, things go sideways.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, relationships are damaged, people are angry, and those are the facts of life when you run projects sometimes, you know? And the goal is hopefully to rectify that and move forward. And, you know, what I would just hope people think is like, you know, it's like if the club were to fail and nobody got paid a dime, then it's like maybe people would feel like, see, I told you. And it's like, yeah, but that fucking sucks, doesn't it? That sucks for everybody. Everybody loses in that.
It does.
And so it's like, you know, I hope for all of y'all, it's like, I hope the club starts doing what you wanted to do in the second year, now that you got over this first year hurdle and all those problems. And it looks beautiful. The comics that I've talked to that work there enjoy working there.
Yeah.
And it's like, if it succeeds, I genuinely think it's like everybody wins. You know, debts get paid, clubs become more successful, comics have places to work. That should be a good thing.
It is.
You know, that
It
should be the goal, rather than just like, I want to be right.
Yep.
And I want people to know I said this and now it's true. It's like, that's lame.
Yeah.
You know?
And one more.
I understand why they're angry,
Yes.
but come on.
But the one thing is that this is, I think, gets lost in all this negativity, right? It's like, there is a lot of positives. You brought it out. It's like a lot of comedians who don't normally get stage time are getting stage time. A lot of comedians, because prior to us coming in, this is one of the things, again, why I wanted to come to a market, is because certain club owners treat the area like it's just their money pit.
Yeah.
They don't really, they're not in it to help the comedians, they're in it to make money. And that is not the purpose that I got into it. If I was, I would not have gotten into comedy. That wouldn't, to make money, I wouldn't have gotten into comedy. I would have went and did something else.
Yeah.
But we have comedians who used to get blacklisted from other clubs because they would play a bar show in the same area on a Friday or Saturday night, which is just ludicrous.
Yeah,
like,
I've heard the gossip about how different places work. But,
yeah,
you know,
it's ludicrous. And so that's why I was like, this is where we're giving them a safe haven. Like, a lot of people get the freedom to come in there, do their comedy, build up. And you know, and what I've seen this happen in Austin, right? like the more time comedians get on stage, the better they get and the faster that they develop. And then it turns into something else. And then they can build a career, a brand for themselves and make a living off of their dream. And that's what we're really trying to do here. That's our goal with Big Live Comedy, is to help people make a dream become a reality. And we have to make our dream become a reality in order for that to happen. And so that's why I keep fighting, man. And a lot of, like you said, a lot of comedians have had a lot of good experiences. There have been a lot of customers who've had a lot of good experiences. We have repeat people. We just got to keep building on that and refining the processes. It's not perfect. It's not going to be perfect right away. I never expected it to be perfect right off the bat, but we're getting there.
Yeah.
And we're making progress, man.
Well,
Progress over perfection.
As somebody who's renovated 2 homes, I can appreciate how projects start out with really good intentions and things can go sideways fast.
100%,
so,
man.
No, I wish you the best of luck, man.
Thanks,
it's like
sir.
I know personally, no matter what anybody thinks, it's like if things succeed, everybody benefits. And that should be the goal, you know? So
I'm going to
best
tell
of
you
luck
like
over
this.
there, man.
We're going to succeed.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to get paid back. This is going to look completely different the next year. And everything is going to be great. So it's the way it is. I'm not giving up. I never will give up. And the haters can kiss my ass.
All right, man.
Thanks, brother.
Dude, I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Let me
man.
get you out of here. You've
All right.
already overstayed our limit here.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Thanks.
The I'm a Fan of podcast, music, comedy, and more.